When a narcissist opens their mouth, they're not trying to communicate with you. They're trying to control you. And every single word is carefully chosen to make you doubt your own reality. We're still talking about toxic personalities, and this is a critical installment in this series. I'm wanting to give you some deep dive information about this because I've heard from so many of you who are dealing with these people in your lives. If you haven't subscribed my channel, do so now. Hit that subscribe button because this episode could be the most important one you'll ever hear. I really want this to be more of a conversation like you and I were sitting around talking about this, because what we're about to unpack is the very foundation of the narcissistic trap. Now, let's get straight to it. Why are words weapons to a narcissist? I've been doing this for 45 years, and let me tell you something: narcissists don't have conversations. They conduct psychological warfare. For you, a conversation is about connection, understanding, and finding common ground. For them, it's a battlefield. Every phrase, every question, every statement is designed to put you on the defensive, to destabilize you, to make you question what you know to be true. They aren't listening to understand you. They're listening for ammunition. They're scanning your words for weaknesses, for anything they can twist, distort, or use against you later. I remember sitting in therapy sessions watching this play out in real time. A couple would come in, and one partner would try to express a feeling, a completely valid feeling, like, "I felt hurt when you didn't show up for dinner." A normal response would be, "I'm sorry, I lost track of time," or "I understand why you'd feel that way." But with a narcissist, the response is a calculated counterattack. It becomes, "You're too sensitive," or "I guess I can't do anything right," or even, "You're just trying to start a fight." You see what happened there? The focus shifted from their action to your reaction. The conversation was no longer about their behavior, it was about your supposed flaw. That's not a discussion, that's a tactic. It's a deliberate, strategic manipulation to evade responsibility and seize control. Every word is a tool to maintain their power and your submission. This brings me to the trap mentality. You have to get this in your head: when you argue with a narcissist, you've already lost. Not the argument, but your peace of mind. You think you're arguing about the facts, about who said what, about what's right and wrong. They're not. They don't want to be right, they want you to be wrong. The goal isn't resolution, it's domination. It's about making you feel confused, exhausted, and crazy so that you eventually give in, not because you agree, but because you can't take it anymore. Think of it like quicksand. Your natural instinct when you're sinking is to struggle, to fight your way out. But with quicksand, the more you struggle, the deeper and faster you sink. Arguing with a narcissist is exactly the same. The more you try to explain yourself, the more you defend your position, the more you provide evidence for your sanity, the deeper you sink into their toxic mire. They feed on your frustration. Your emotional response is their victory. They want you to get upset, to raise your voice, to cry. Because the moment you do, they can lean back and say, "See, you're the unstable one. You're the one with the problem." And the trap snaps shut. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. I want you to be really honest with yourself. Have you ever walked away from a conversation with someone feeling like you lost your mind? Even though you knew you were right going in, have you ever felt like no matter what you said, they twisted your words until you ended up apologizing for something you didn't even do? Drop me a comment and tell me about that experience. Because I guarantee you're not alone, you're not crazy. You've just been in the ring with a master manipulator, and you didn't even know you were in a fight. Sharing your story is the first step to taking your power back. So what makes this different from normal disagreements? Because let's be clear, every healthy relationship is conflict. People disagree. But this isn't about healthy conflict resolution. This is a completely different ball game. In a healthy disagreement, both people have the same goal to understand and be understood. There's a foundation of respect. Even when you're at odds, you're trying to solve a problem together. A narcissist isn't trying to solve a problem. They are the problem. They don't want to understand you, and they have no interest in being understood in a genuine way. They want to win and make you lose. That's it. It's a zero-sum game. They're playing chess while you think you're having a conversation. You're trying to connect the dots, and they're trying to knock the whole board over and then blame you for the mess. Normal people argue to resolve. Narcissists argue to dissolve your confidence, your reality, and your will. But here's the good news. I'm not telling you all of this to make you feel helpless. I'm telling you this because knowledge is power and power is protection. Once you know their playbook, you can stop playing their game. You can't change them, but you can absolutely change how you respond. Now that you understand the setup, let's break down exactly what to listen for. Let's get into the specific phrases, the red flags that should make you walk away. If you hear any of these phrases coming out of someone's mouth, I want you to imagine a bright red warning light flashing in your brain because you're about to be gaslighted into next week. These aren't just words. They are precision-guided munitions aimed directly at your sense of reality. Let's start with the classic gaslighting arsenal. These are the go-to weapons you'll hear time and time again. First up, the granddaddy of them all, I didn't say that. You know they said it. You remember the words, the tone, the look in their eye, but they will deny it with such conviction that you start to wonder, did I imagine it? Am I losing my mind? That's the goal. It's not about the truth, it's about making you doubt your own memory. They are actively rewriting history in real time, and if you question it, you're the one who's crazy. Next, you'll hear, you're too sensitive. Let me translate that for you. What they're really saying is, your feelings are invalid, and your reaction to my bad behavior is the real problem here. This is a masterclass in deflection. They do something hurtful, and when you react like any normal human being would, they label your reaction as a flaw. It's a way to shut you down and make you feel ashamed for having emotions. It's not you, it's them. Your feelings are a perfectly normal response to their toxic behavior. Then there's the classic minimizer. You're making a big deal out of nothing. They'll lie, cheat, or betray your trust, and when you confront them, they'll act like you're overreacting to a spilled glass of milk. This phrase is designed to shrink your legitimate concerns down to nothing. It makes you feel foolish and hysterical for caring about something that clearly matters. They are conditioning you to accept unacceptable behavior by telling you your standards are unreasonable. And if that doesn't work, they'll hit you with, "What's wrong with you?" This is a direct assault on your sanity. The conversation is no longer about what they did, it's about your supposed mental defects. It's a vicious tactic meant to put you on the defensive and make you scramble to prove you're okay, all while they skate away from any accountability. Now, let's talk about the victim reversal phrases. This is where they flip the script so masterfully that you end up feeling like the villain in your own story. You'll hear things like, "You're the one with the problem," or "You're always starting fights. Listen to me, you are not starting a fight when you ask for respect. You are not the one with the problem when you call out their lies." This is pure projection. They are taking all their own dysfunction, all their own aggression, and pinning it on you. They provoke you, push your buttons until you finally react, and then they point at your reaction and say, "See, I told you, you're the aggressive one." It's emotional arson. They set the fire and then blame you for screaming. Another favorite is, "I was just joking. Why are you so serious?" This is a coward's excuse for cruelty. They get to say something nasty, something designed to cut you down, and if you get upset, they retreat behind the shield of humor. It's a test. They're seeing what they can get away with. If you accept the joke, you've just told them it's okay to disrespect you. Finally, we have the confusion tactics. These phrases are designed to create a mental fog so thick you can't find your way out. They'll say, "That's not what I meant," or "You heard what you wanted to hear." This is insidious because it attacks your ability to understand the world. It suggests you're not just wrong, but that you're twisting their words to fit your own malicious agenda. They are denying your reality and replacing it with theirs. You'll hear, "You're putting words in my mouth," right after you've quoted them verbatim. This creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, that gut-wrenching feeling when what you know to be true is in direct conflict with what someone is telling you. A confused mind is an easily controlled mind, and that's exactly where they want you. So why do these phrases work so damn well? It's simple. They are exploiting everything that makes you a good person. Your brain is wired to resolve conflict and seek harmony. You assume that other people, like you, are operating with good intentions. You give them the benefit of the doubt because that's what decent people do. You keep explaining, you keep trying to find common ground because you believe that if you can just make them understand, the conflict will be resolved. You have to understand this. They are counting on your goodness. They are weaponizing your empathy against you. Your desire for harmony is the weakness they exploit to create chaos. But once you see it, once you recognize these phrases for the manipulative tools they are, you can stop the game. You don't have to pick up the rope in their tug of war. You can simply let it drop. All right, we've talked about the verbal weapons narcissists use, but now we need to talk about the battlefield itself. And that battlefield is your own mind. Your biggest enemy when dealing with a narcissist isn't them, it's your own brain, because everything that makes you a good, decent person is exactly what they're going to weaponize against you. Let's get this straight. Empathy is a superpower with normal people, but it is a crippling liability with a narcissist. You, as an empathetic person, are wired to feel what others feel, to connect, to understand their pain. You see someone struggling and your first instinct is to help. A narcissist sees someone struggling and their first instinct is to figure out how to use that struggle to their advantage. They study your empathy like a general studies a roadmap to his enemy's capital. They see your compassion not as a virtue, but as a vulnerability, an unlocked door to your psyche. You keep trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. They say something cruel, and you think maybe they're just having a bad day. They break a promise, and you tell yourself, they must be under a lot of stress. You are projecting your own capacity for goodness onto them, assuming they have the same moral compass you do. They don't. From a clinical standpoint, what they do is a form of predatory mirroring. They can mimic the language of emotion and remorse without actually feeling any of it. They learn to say, I'm sorry, or I understand, not because they mean it, but because they've learned that those words get a specific desired response from you. They are emotional vampires, and your empathy is the rich, warm blood they feed on to feel powerful and alive. The more you give, the more they take, leaving you emotionally drained and anemic. This leads directly to the next part of the trap, your fundamental need to be understood. Normal, healthy people want to be understood when there's conflict. It's a driving force in human connection. We believe that if we can just explain our side clearly enough, the other person will see our point of view and we can find a resolution. Narcissists know this. And they use this basic human need against you by pretending not to understand. You'll find yourself in circular conversations that go nowhere. You'll explain your feelings calmly and rationally using I statements, doing everything you're supposed to do. And they will meet you with a blank stare or a deliberate misinterpretation of your words. The more you explain, the more ammunition you give them. Every detail you provide, every clarification you offer is another piece of information they can twist and use to paint you as irrational, demanding, or crazy. It's like trying to teach calculus to someone who is actively pretending they don't know basic math. It's not that they can't understand you, it's that they won't. Their goal is not to understand, it is to make you exhaust yourself in the pursuit of being understood until you give up in sheer frustration. So why do we keep arguing? Why does it feel so necessary when it's so clearly destructive? Because your brain is screaming at you that if you just explain it one more time, in a different way with a better example, then they'll finally get it. But you have to accept this fundamental truth. They are not listening to understand, they are listening to attack. Every word you say is being cataloged, filed away for future use against you. That offhand comment you made last week, it will be brought up next month as proof of your hypocrisy. That moment of vulnerability you shared, it will become the centerpiece of their next character assassination. I had a client once, a very intelligent woman who was being relentlessly gaslighted by her husband. She started keeping a detailed journal of their conversations, writing down verbatim what was said, thinking she could use it to prove she wasn't crazy. When she finally presented it to him during an argument, he didn't even look at the content. He just smiled and said, "Look at you. You're so obsessed with me, you're writing everything down. This proves you're the unstable one." He took her desperate attempt to hold on to reality and twisted it into a weapon against her. The moment you start defending yourself, the moment you step into the ring to argue on their terms, you've stepped into their arena where they make the rules and they are always the referee. And there's a biological reason this is so devastating. When you're being gaslighted and attacked, your brain's threat detection system, the amygdala, goes into overdrive. It triggers your fight or flight response. Adrenaline and cortisol flood your system. Your heart pounds, your breathing gets shallow, you're ready to either fight for your life or run for the hills. But with a narcissist, both fighting and fleeing can backfire. If you fight, you're hysterical. If you flee by shutting down or leaving the room, you're giving them the silent treatment and refusing to communicate. They're counting on your emotional response. They want to get you into that agitated, adrenalized state. Your adrenaline is their entertainment. Your distress is their victory. They stay calm as a cucumber while you're falling apart, and that contrast is what they use as evidence of their superiority and your instability. What keeps you hooked in this insane cycle? It's a powerful psychological principle called intermittent reinforcement. Sometimes, just when you're about to give up, they seem reasonable. They'll have a moment of clarity, offer a half-hearted apology, or do something kind, and your brain latches onto that. It's like a slot machine in Vegas. It doesn't pay out every time, but it pays out just enough, and just unpredictably enough, to keep you pulling that lever, hoping for the next jackpot. Those moments of good behavior are not a sign of change. They are a calculated maneuver to reset the abuse cycle and keep you hoping, keep you trying, and keep you trapped. All right, I want you to listen to me closely on this. Narcissists are like master fishermen. They know exactly what bait to use to get you to bite. And once you do, they've got you hooked exactly where they want you. This isn't random. It's a calculated predatory sequence of events. It's the bait and switch. And today we're going to expose how it works so you can see the hook before you ever bite down on it. It all starts with the setup phase. This is how they bait you. They don't come at you with horns and a pitchfork. They come at you with honey. They'll start with something that sounds completely reasonable, even thoughtful. They might approach you with a tone of vulnerability or seem apologetic. This is the lure. It's designed to lower your defenses and appeal to your empathetic nature. You think, "Oh, finally, we're going to have a real conversation." They're ready to listen. You'll hear phrases like, "I've been thinking about what you said." This is a powerful piece of bait because it validates your previous attempt to communicate. It makes you think you've finally gotten through to them. Or they'll use the classic, innocent sounding, "Can we talk?" Your guard comes down because that's what healthy people do. They talk. You see, this is an olive branch, an invitation to connect. What you don't realize is that you're not being invited to a peace talk. You're being led into an ambush. This initial phase is all about creating a false sense of security. They are manufacturing an environment where you feel safe enough to be open and honest. That's the whole point. They need you to engage willingly so they can spring the trap. And that brings us to the switch. The moment you take the bait and start to engage honestly, the trap springs. The rules of the game change instantly. Suddenly, your reasonable response, the one they just invited you to give, becomes evidence of all your supposed problems. They'll take your words and twist them into pretzels right in front of your eyes, and they'll do it so fast it'll make your head spin. Let me give you an example. Let's say they come to you and say, "Can we talk? I feel like we've been distant lately, and I miss you." You, being a decent person, respond with, "I felt that way too. I think it's because I felt really hurt last week when you made that joke about me in front of our friends. Now, in a normal conversation, this is where resolution begins. But with a narcissist, this is where the attack starts. The switch happens immediately. They'll say, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I come to you trying to be close, and you immediately bring up the past and attack me. You can never just let things go. You always have to find something to be angry about. Do you see what happened? The conversation is no longer about the initial issue of feeling distant, nor is it about their hurtful joke. It's now about your flaw, your inability to let things go, or your anger. They took your vulnerable, honest response and reframed it as an attack. This is where their true agenda is revealed. It was never about resolving anything. It was never about getting closer. It was about getting you to react so they could gain the upper hand. This leads directly to the emotional escalation pattern. Once they've twisted your words and put you on the defensive, they will start pushing your buttons with surgical precision until you lose your cool. They know exactly what to say to get under your skin. They will poke and prod and provoke until you finally get frustrated, raise your voice, or start to cry. And the second you do, they've won. They'll lean back, suddenly calm and rational, and say something like, "Look at you. You're getting hysterical. I can't even have a normal conversation with you." Or the classic, "I wasn't yelling, I was just being passionate, but look at you. You're completely out of control." They are emotional arsonists who set your house on fire and then stand back and criticize the way you're trying to put it out. The entire goal of this exercise is to get you to behave in a way that validates their narrative about you. They need you to look like the crazy one so they can look like the calm, rational victim of your emotional instability. This is precisely why normal conflict resolution techniques do not work with these people. You can't use, "I feel," statements with someone who sees your feelings as a weapon to be used against you. You can't negotiate with someone who changes the rules of the game halfway through. They are not looking for solutions, they are looking for supply. Your distress, your frustration, your pain, that is their drug of choice. The more upset you get, the more powerful they feel. You're trying to build a bridge, and they're trying to burn it down with you on it. And what's the aftermath of all this? It's brutal. Everything you said and did during that engineered conflict becomes evidence in their ongoing case against you. They will replay your worst moments, the moments they deliberately provoked, over and over again. They'll tell you and anyone else who will listen about the time you flew into a rage or completely broke down while conveniently forgetting the hours of baiting and prodding that led up to it. You walked into what you thought was a conversation, and you walked out with a criminal record in their court of public opinion, with them acting as the judge, jury, and star witness. Well, hey, let's talk about the real-world cost of this stuff. Because every time you argue with a narcissist, every time you take that bait, you're not just wasting your breath and your time, you're actually feeding their disorder and destroying your own mental health in the process. This isn't just an unpleasant experience, it's a destructive one that inflicts real, measurable damage. Let's talk about the immediate psychological damage. What happens in your body and brain the moment you engage? The second you step into that verbal trap, your stress hormones, cortisol, and adrenaline go through the roof. Your body goes into a state of high alert, the same fight or flight response it would have if you were facing a physical threat. But you're not facing a tiger, you're facing a manipulator, and this state of high alert becomes chronic. You start questioning your own memory, your own perception of reality. This is what we in the business call crazy-making behavior. It's a deliberate campaign to make you feel like you're losing your grip. I've seen people in my practice. Strong, intelligent people develop full-blown anxiety disorders from being subjected to chronic gaslighting. Your self-confidence gets chipped away, one corrosive argument at a time, until you start to doubt everything about yourself. Clinically, what's happening is that the constant stress and invalidation begin to affect your brain's hippocampus, the part responsible for memory and learning. When it's constantly flooded with stress hormones, its ability to function properly is impaired. That's why you start to have trouble recalling conversations accurately, why you feel foggy and confused. It's not because you're making things up or being too sensitive. It's because your brain is under a sustained psychological assault. Now let's zoom out and look at the long-term consequences of repeated engagement, because this is where the real devastation happens. Over time, you start to lose yourself. The person you were before the relationship, confident, easygoing, decisive, begins to disappear. You become hypervigilant, constantly scanning their moods, watching their every move, listening to the tone of their voice, trying to anticipate the next attack. You're walking on eggshells, and those eggshells are your life. Your entire world shrinks down to managing their moods and avoiding their rage. I had a client, a successful executive, who had been married to a narcissist for over a decade. When she first came to see me, she was a shell of her former self. She told me she couldn't even decide what to order at a restaurant without having a panic attack. She'd say, "What if I order the wrong thing? What if he thinks it's too expensive? What if he makes a comment about it?" This brilliant woman who managed a multi-million-dollar budget at work couldn't make a simple decision about a plate of food. Why? Because the constant invalidation had completely eroded her ability to trust her own judgment. Her brain had been rewired by years of being told her choices were wrong, her feelings were wrong, her reality was wrong. Eventually, you start to believe their version of reality because it's just too exhausting to keep fighting for your own. And how do you think this affects your other relationships? It's a disaster. You become defensive with everyone, not just the narcissist. You start over explaining yourself to your friends, your family, your coworkers, people who don't require it. You feel the need to justify every decision, every feeling, because you're so used to having to defend your existence. Your friends and family watch you change. They see you become more anxious, more withdrawn, less like yourself, and they don't understand why. They'll try to help. They'll say, "Why do you let them treat you like that?" But you can't explain it. It's too exhausting to try and make them understand the intricate web you're caught in. So you do the one thing the narcissist wants more than anything: you isolate yourself. You pull away from your support system because it's just easier than trying to explain the unexplainable. Now, we have to talk about the fuel for this fire: narcissistic supply. You have to understand every reaction you have, good or bad, feeds their ego. Your distress validates their sense of power. They need your emotional response to feel alive, to fill that chronic emptiness inside them. When you yell, you're giving them supply. When you cry, you're giving them supply. When you defend yourself, you're giving them supply. You are essentially giving them exactly what they want. The more upset you get, the more satisfied they become. It's a sick, twisted transaction where your pain is their pleasure. They feel powerful by making you feel powerless. They feel in control by making you feel out of control. This is why when you finally start to get healthy and you try to disengage, they don't just let you go. They escalate. When you stop taking the bait, when you stop giving them that emotional reaction, they up the ante. Think of them like an addict whose drug supply is being cut off. They will become more desperate, more manipulative, more aggressive. They will do anything to get that reaction from you again. Their behavior gets worse before it gets better because your refusal to play the game is the ultimate threat to their fragile sense of self. Now we're going to talk about the escape hatch. The most powerful thing you can do when a narcissist tries to trap you isn't to fight back. It's to not fight at all. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. This is the art of non-engagement, and it's your ticket back to sanity. First, you need to learn a technique that we call the gray rock method. I want you to get this because it's a game changer. Your new goal is to become the most boring, uninteresting, and unresponsive person they have ever met. Think about a plain gray rock on the side of the road. It's just there. It's not exciting. It's not reactive. It's not engaging. That is who you need to become in your interactions with them. No emotional reactions, no personal information. No narcissistic supply. You give them nothing to work with. They can't manipulate what they can't get a reaction from. When they throw insults, you don't get angry. When they fish for compliments, you don't give them. When they try to start a fight, you don't show up for it. Let me give you some specific examples. When they hit you with, "You're being ridiculous," instead of defending yourself, you simply say, "Okay." When they try to pry into your life with, "What's wrong with you?" You seem off, you give them a flat, "Nothing much going on." You give one-word answers. You become an emotional black hole. They're looking for that hit of drama, that supply of your emotional energy, and you're giving them absolutely nothing. It will drive them crazy because a narcissist without an audience, without a reaction, is just a person talking to themselves in a room. They will eventually get bored and go look for supply somewhere else. Now, let's get into some specific strategic responses that will shut down their manipulation cold. These are your verbal judo moves. You're going to use their force against them without ever getting into the fight. When they state some outrageous opinion as fact, instead of arguing, you say, "That's an interesting perspective. You see what you did there. You didn't agree with them. You didn't disagree with them. You validated nothing, but you ended the argument." It gives them nowhere to go. When they demand you make a decision or agree with them on the spot, you say, "I'll have to think about what you've said." This is a brilliant move. It buys you time. It shows you're considering their point. But you haven't committed to a single thing. You've taken back control of the timeline. When they are in the middle of a rant, full of emotion and blame, you look at them calmly and say, "I can see you feel strongly about this." Again, you're not agreeing with the content of their rant. You're simply acknowledging the emotion they're displaying. It's a de-escalation tactic that acknowledges their feeling without validating their distorted reality. When they try to drag you into a circular argument you've had 100 times, you set a firm boundary by saying, "I'm not going to discuss this with you right now." And then you stick to it. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it. The discussion is over because you said it's over. And here's a powerful one. When they're being completely illogical, you can put the burden of proof back on them by saying, "Help me understand your logic." This forces them to try and explain their irrational position, and most of the time they can't. They're operating on pure emotion and manipulation, not logic, and when you call that out, the whole thing falls apart. These responses are like psychological judo. You're using their own force and momentum to gently but firmly move them out of your way. Now, you have to be prepared for what comes next. When you start to disengage, when you stop being their favorite source of supply, they are going to escalate. They're going to get worse before they get better. Think of it like a toddler who's used to getting a cookie every time they throw a tantrum. The first time you don't give them the cookie, they don't just stop. They throw an even bigger tantrum. They scream louder, they kick the floor, they hold their breath. They are testing you. They're thinking, how loud do I have to get to make them give in like they always do? The louder they get, the calmer you need to be. You have to hold that boundary like your life depends on it, because your sanity does. This is the point where most people cave. They can't stand the intensity of the escalation, so they give in just to make it stop. Don't be most people. This all boils down to the importance of emotional detachment. You have to get to a place where you stop caring about their opinion of you. I know that's hard, especially if this is a parent, a spouse, or a sibling. But you have to understand their approval is not worth your sanity. Their opinion of you is a reflection of them, not you. Detachment isn't cruel, it's an act of radical self-preservation. You are putting your own oxygen mask on first. You have to accept that you cannot save someone who doesn't want to be saved, and you can't fix someone who doesn't believe they're broken. And finally, sometimes the only winning move is not to play. There are situations where emotional distance and non-engagement aren't enough. If the abuse is escalating, if your safety is at risk, or if the relationship is simply destroying your ability to live a healthy life, you have to be willing to walk away completely. Creating physical distance is the ultimate act of non-engagement. It's you saying, I will not participate in my own destruction anymore. And that is the most powerful move you can make. Today, we've talked about the tactics, the psychology, and the art of non-engagement. But disengaging is just the defense. Now we have to talk about the offense. And I'm not talking about fighting back. The best defense against a narcissist isn't learning how to fight them. It's building a life so strong and a sense of self so solid that their manipulation can't even touch you. It's about becoming psychologically bulletproof. First things first, we have to rebuild your reality testing. A narcissist's primary goal is to make you doubt your own mind. So your first job in recovery is to become the ultimate authority on your own life. And that starts with trusting your gut, your intuition. That feeling in the pit of your stomach that tells you something is wrong is your most reliable narrator. For too long, you've been told it's wrong, that you're too sensitive or imagining things. I'm telling you to start listening to it again. It's usually right. Next, you need to keep a journal. I'm not talking about a Dear Diary kind of thing. I'm talking about a factual log of interactions. Write down what was said, what happened, and how it made you feel. This isn't for them, it's for you. When the gaslighting starts and they deny something they said yesterday, you don't have to rely on your stressed out memory. You can go back to your own written record and confirm your reality. This is your personal black box, your undeniable proof. And let me be clear, your feelings are valid, period. They don't require a committee vote. They don't need the narcissist's approval. If you feel hurt, you feel hurt. If you feel angry, you feel angry. Stop letting them be the judge of your emotional life. Reality is not negotiable with these people. Now, you can't do this alone. The next step is creating an unshakable support system. And I don't just mean well-intentioned friends who tell you to just leave. You need people who understand the specific dynamics of narcissistic abuse. Not everyone will get it, and that's okay. Some people will give you bad advice because they're trying to apply normal relationship logic to a completely abnormal situation. You need to find your tribe. That means finding a therapist who specializes in this type of trauma. You wouldn't go to a foot doctor for a heart problem, and you shouldn't go to a general therapist for something as specific as narcissistic abuse recovery. I also want you to look into support groups, either online or in person with people who have been there. There is an incredible power in hearing someone else tell your story. I remember a client who was on the verge of a breakdown. She was convinced she was the problem, that she was uniquely broken. I urged her to attend a support group, and she reluctantly went. She told me later that the moment she heard another woman describe the exact same circular arguments, the same gaslighting phrases, the same patterns of manipulation she had endured, it was like the lights came on for the first time. She cried, not from sadness, but from relief. She wasn't alone. She wasn't crazy. That validation from others was the turning point that saved her. You have to remember, isolation is their weapon, but connection is your shield. With that shield in place, you can start developing emotional immunity. This is about building your self-worth from the inside out, so it's no longer dependent on their approval or disapproval. You have to get this next sentence tattooed on your brain. Their opinion of you is none of your business. Let me say it again. Their opinion of you is none of your business. It's a reflection of their own distorted world, their own insecurities, their own pathology. It has absolutely nothing to do with your actual worth as a human being. You also have to practice radical self-compassion. You're going to slip up. There will be days when you get drawn back into an argument. There will be moments when you fall back into old patterns. That's okay. You're unlearning years of conditioning. When it happens, you don't beat yourself up. You recognize it, you learn from it, and you get back on track. You have to remember you can't logic someone out of a position they didn't logic themselves into in the first place. Their behavior isn't based on reason, so your reason won't fix it. Your worth isn't determined by their approval. The stronger you become in your own sense of self, the less appealing you are to them. Narcissists are drawn to people they can control and manipulate. When you become someone who is grounded, confident, and non-reactive, You become a terrible source of supply. You become boring to them, and that is a victory. This is a long-term recovery plan. Healing from narcissistic abuse takes time. It's not a weekend project. Be patient with yourself as you rebuild. It's a process of rediscovering who you are without their constant criticism and control. It is absolutely normal to doubt yourself during this recovery. You'll have moments where you miss the good times or question if it was really that bad. That's the trauma bond talking. It's part of the process. Stay the course. Know that every single day you don't engage, every argument you walk away from, every time you choose your own peace over their chaos is a victory. You're not just surviving anymore. You are actively reclaiming your life piece by piece. And I want to leave you with this. You survived their worst. You endured a level of psychological manipulation that many people can't even fathom. You can handle anything now. Your refusal to be manipulated is your greatest strength. They saw that strength in you, that light, and they tried to extinguish it because they couldn't control it. They didn't break you. They revealed your power. Now it's time to own it.